It's oolong tea. I don't know.
Yeah, he's around, but not involved.
Yeah, okay. All right, this is the Citrus County Planning and Development Commission public hearing for March 5th, 2026. If you would like to join us at this time, I invite you to please stand for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear Lord, please give us the grace to be understanding, patient, and tolerant. With these attributes, we can conduct our work in a manner which will be pleasing to Thee, our county, and its residents. In the Lord's name, amen.
Okay, so there's a lot of people in the room. Do we know if the upstairs room, is it opened in full too? Okay. So just in the courtesy of everyone's time and the applicants and the board and those around you, at this time, we ask that you place all cellular devices on silent. If we hear it go off, we have a swear jar. It's $5 every time. Pays for our lunch. Roll call.
Hi, good morning. The following Planning and Development Commission members are present. Chair David Bramblett, Michael Facemeyer, Second Vice Chair, Richard Barmez, Stuart Bozeman, Robert Shera, alternates Timothy Gilbert and Janice Murphy, and School Board Representative Chuck Dixon.
Thank you. If any person decides to appeal any decision made by the commission with respect to any matter considered at this hearing, he or she will need a record of the proceedings. For such purpose, he or she may need to ensure that a verbatim record of the proceedings is made, which record includes testimony and evidence upon which the appeal is to be based. During the public input portions of the meeting, individuals are given 3 minutes, and representatives of an organization are given 5. When anyone wishing to speak comes to the podium, please complete a yellow form to hand to the recording secretary. Please print your name, address, and the number of the application, which we already know that there's only one application, so you don't need it, which you are speaking. The yellow forms are at the podium by the door. If you are representing an organization, a letter of authorization must accompany the speaker. Comments will be limited to the topic being heard. Please state your name, spell your last name, and give your address for the taped record. So at this time, we will have the public portion of the meeting. This is for anyone to come up and speak that is not related to the item on the agenda. It's not related. If it's anything not related to the item on the agenda, if you want to speak now, you would relinquish your time to speak during the public portion of the item. Yes, sir.
Not sure if I'm at the right meeting for it. My name's Alan Ivory. I am here regarding the land use change in Crystal River on Citrus Avenue from commercial to industrial.
So is that the city of Crystal River?
Yeah, but it's not, so it's,
Mr. Ivory can speak.
Okay, all right.
all right. So what I'm here for today is to see, and the county owns 1 acre property right next to the parcel of land that's trying to be changed to industrial. So I'm not sure who I need to speak to, or this is the committee, to see if the county will write a letter of opposition for rezoning since they are an adjoining property owner.
Okay.
This is your opportunity to make whatever statements you want.
So I've already got property owners surrounding it. I think I've got 3 so far that has signed a petition. I've already went to the city of Crystal River that owns 200 acres next to it. They're going to convene in, I think, 2 weeks to decide on that. So now I wanted to come to the county, since they own 1 acre property right next to the development, to see if they'll write a letter of opposition for the rezoning change.
I think that the county staff has heard your statement, and I'm guessing they will take it into consideration.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's all I wanted.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Mr. Ivory, can I get your yellow sheet, please?
Anybody else? Seeing none, we will close that public portion of the meeting. We do not have any minutes to approve. Staff announcements.
None at this time, thank you.
And at this time, all right, ex parte communication, Madam Attorney.
Good morning, Board. With regard to the applications before you, have you had any ex parte communications? And we'll start with Mr. Dixon.
Site visits.
None.
Site visits. None?
None.
Site visit.
None.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And before we proceed, Mr. Bramlett, and Board, these applications there are two applications. They're very, very hard to parse together. The applicant's presentation and my own are combined. I did talk to them briefly before this. We'd like to ask as one presentation, but obviously separate motions for the applications, if that's okay with the Board.
Is everybody up here okay with that?
Yes.
Yes. And we do have an overflow room, so speak into your mics. They can see and hear everything here, and y'all are YouTube stars today because this is going on YouTube. So when there's a chance for open to the public, we will bring the people in the overflow room down and have them a chance to speak as well.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, so CPAA 2025 00012 and 00013. Is the applicant present? The floor is yours.
Wait,
Staff.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
he's trying. We're going.
Thank you. This application proposes to amend the future land use map and LDC Atlas map and revise an existing sub-area plan in the comprehensive plan. The existing industrial sub-area plan contains 557.4 acres, and this application will add approximately 798.6 acres for a total of 1,356 acres. The site lies on County Road 491 and US 41 in the Hernando area and also abuts North Tram Road. Zoning and future land use designations would change from multiple residential designations to industrial, heavy industrial with a sub-area plan. This is looking north and south on County Road 491. The photo location is approximately the location of one of two access points proposed on County Road 491. This is looking north and south on North Tram Road, which abuts the site but is not proposed as an access point. This is looking north and south on US 41. This is the revised and expanded sub-area plan provided by the applicant. The accompanying application proposes to expand the county's planned service area as indicated on this map. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we will have the applicant.
Just give us a sec to queue up your PowerPoint.
Alrighty, it's all yours. There's a bold button.
Right there. Good morning. Sid Ansbacher, 780 North Ponce de Leon Boulevard, City of St. Augustine, Florida. Here for the applicant, Deltona Corporation, for both the expansion of the PSA and, yes, ma'am, sorry.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, and I'm sorry, Mr. Ansbacher, but our overflow room is full. And so we are working to try and find more seats for the extra folks. I just wanted to let the applicant know if the applicant wants to give us a few minutes or if the applicant wants to continue, it's up to them.
It's a public hearing. I'll wait.
You'll wait? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Joe, did you hear that?
they're gonna hold the hearing until they resolve it.
Yeah, let us know. Sorry for the interruption.
No problem. Cue the Jeopardy music.
It's like about 4 or 5 there, yeah.
You can sit here if you want.
No, he cannot. He's not allowed to testify like you are. But I appreciate it.
Well, keep it moving, it's old.
Sorry.
Oh, that orange part here? This here?
Yeah, what is that?
That says proposed PSA expansion.
Went to the,
I'm so sorry.
we got that going on, but I went to that yesterday.
I should put that on.
I'm over here if you need.
I'll put this up on the screen for you guys, okay?
They're locating properties and trying to connect all these sensitive areas that
So you guys
allow
can get
the
a big
animals to travel from north and south. And a lot of these animals, back before everything was developed, they all traveled from the glades and green swamp area, and they travel up to the panhandle, migrate and stuff like that. So we've developed, chopped it off, and large canals, a major, stopped a lot of traveling, so they're trying to figure out a way to create like an animal crossing and stuff like that up there. And,
You know, probably need another one.
oh, there needs a lot of them. Yeah. Yeah, but it was good.
I think I should put that up.
Time. Very educational. And, doing a lot of good.
It didn't say it. It said proposed.
Doing things,
Yeah.
things that I just never got too involved in.
Maybe the aerial is.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what Eric presented in the morning and opened it up. Said that they did
They're transitioning through the
a survey and they had like 2,000 respondents, and he thought maybe, you know, economy and jobs and houses and stuff would be number one, but literally number one was wildlife and nature.
I hate to offer this one shoe.
My sister, he came here several years ago to visit us. One of the things that she never realized was so much open space.
Oh,
Because you only went to the beaches.
Yeah, only at the edges. You spend time around the edges on the
yeah, this
coast.
isn't
That's
the same as the letter.
Florida.
It's not the same map. They didn't change it. It's
In
just
Citrus County, I think they did it earlier.
it's a different kind of map. So in my speaking,
Wildlife
I'm going to say I live right next to parcel, parcel 3, but that's not what it is, right?
well, that's not the same map, but I mean they're different. It could be.
What is that number right there?
I think it says. I can't tell. 4-2.
And 3, oh no, I think it says 13,000. I don't know what that means.
I'm assuming, let's see. There we go. Advance that. Okay.
That's what the arrows are for, I guess.
So American.
And Paul,
American that we didn't. I think it's talking about this one.
That's terrible, isn't it? That's what I wanted. Done.
It's nice we have the right.
Yep. unicorn at the moment. There was no such thing as 3,000 to 4,000 square feet. Commercial space for rent.
Rent, yeah,
Does
there's
not
a
exist.
lot of stuff's for sale right now.
Not lucrative anymore to have commercial space.
What happens is when things are selling,
What's the rent?
yeah, you know what I mean, especially when your prices are, if we were in a super stalled market like we are with residential, that's why you see a lot more residential homes coming up now. And when people can sell for up here, they take advantage.
Yep. I was like, what is happening? I was like, we're trying to take my next door where my wife's dance studio is, and the landlord and I are like back and forth about it. Like, let me just go look for other.
Where are you trying to be again?
I'm trying to stay on the east side of Citrus. Like right now, I'm at the Pepsi Plaza in Inverness. I have like the core unit there.
You know, like there's an old school, yes, Thomas Absent. Right there at the
I actually thought about that one and the one in Beverly Hills.
The one in Beverly Hills has been renovated into a gym now.
Oh, it has.
They came and renovated it.
That's something like I need. I need something like that. I don't want to pay like. I looked at the T-Mobile building down the road on Inverness. This first lady, I was like, hey, how big is it? She's like, oh, what are you doing? Which one's the rent? She's like 9 point, like 5,000 a month. I'm like, 30 square feet? Again, I'm like,
Yeah, you need like obscure, like warehouse.
I slept quite well. I got up at
like the dance studio.
But again, my position is, as you said,
yeah, same kind of concept. I need something like that, but there's none. Or they're all just taking like people that have had them for years now. It's like, you should be absolutely, yeah. Dude, I'm dying over here. I'm
yes,
like,
ma'am.
space. By day, I'm a cybersecurity engineer. So I do a lot of government contracts and military work. And then at night, my wife and I own a dance studio.
Well, that's a good question. Appropriate question.
So I do a lot of waltz, indie hop, you name it. And then my wife does like competitive dance. So
Well, except
her favorite.
I'm listening.
I'm fine.
I taught at for about 9 years. 9 years, and then before that, I taught at accounting for about 4 years.
Not that I'm worried.
Yes. And then my wife and I met each other. Easy. We were both in every year. She's the only reason why I live in Citrus County. I was from Orlando originally, and when we started dating, she was like, "Oh, coming on." You knew I was sure. And you know, we're about to eat in Inverness. I'm like, "Well, you're Inverness." I'm like, "What's that?" It's a city. I'm like, "Sure, okay." So we drove over, and finally, whenever we decided to have like a family, it's like, "All right, my family's scattered. Her family was clustered here." And I put on Google Maps, and I put all of our family like at this point. I was like, okay, scattered, scattered, and then I was like, big old cluster. I'm like, there's the babysitter. There's the babysitter. So I was like,
And all that,
I
but
work
really
remote,
when you
so
put it around, you know what I mean?
I'm like,
Takes a special person.
oh, that's what's great about it because we have a 7-year-old daughter. So
No, I have not.
yeah. Yes.
We retired now. Vacation. Maybe decided.
Oh, yeah.
To go boating and down this beach.
Yeah.
Everything
Grab him.
like to get to a bed.
Okay. But no, he's in the building.
How's that? Like rotating in
Yep.
and I was on the closest one with no house. She would have gotten to it.
It was definitely fun.
I knew she did. We have several conference rooms with TV, so it's just probably just a matter of getting this set up.
I've had a few hearings where we've done that over the years. In Flagler County, they have giant windows.
Chair,
Staring at you.
Are we ready?
we have accommodated everyone that wants to watch and is here.
Perfect. All right, here we go.
Okay, so where I was, We have the privilege of representing the Deltona Corporation on the two applications which we were mentioning when we had to take the break. As Ms. Lynn will tell you, as a lawyer, what I would say is argument and not testimony, and it is our burden to provide competent, substantial evidence today. Paul Gibbs will be our first speaker. Mr. Gibbs will discuss site plan and general compatibility issues. Avis Craig will speak next to planning issues. Victor Liotta will follow Ms. Craig. Mr. Liotta will discuss economic issues. And then finally, Clark Stillwell will conclude discussing how we got from 2019 to here. I will reserve rebuttal. We heard both comments. I was in back at the BCC workshop discussing the proposed LDC language, took notes. We read the comment cards. I think it best to respond at rebuttal because frankly we want to make sure what we propose today will actually be responsive to everything rather than to do it in dribs and drabs. So with that in mind, I will turn it over to Mr. Gibbs, but as I said, I expect to have substantive responses at rebuttal, which I think will be more in the nature of here is what we have heard, here is what we propose. So with that, I'll turn it over to Paul Gibbs.
Good morning. My name is Paul Gibbs. I'm a landscape architect and land planner with Community Land Design, Ocala, Florida. I'm going to introduce you, my role in this presentation is to introduce you to the site location, and some of the natural features of the site, and then I'll get into the proposed sector plan itself, and then I'll turn it over to others for more detail. Okay, am I pushing the wrong button?
I'm not sure, maybe if we point it this way, I don't know why it wouldn't work. I can do next slide if you need to.
Okay, yeah, next slide, please.
Thought I could. Nothing? Hold on. Yeah, I'm not sure where I checked it. Can you sync it out?
Here she comes. We're doing good. We're on slide one.
Yeah. I don't know why his clicker's not working. I think it worked now. Thank you.
Okay.
Got it.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you again.
Thank you as always. As you know, the site is located in Holder, Florida, near the County Road 491 and US 41. And we're at the southeast, near the southeast quadrant of that intersection. I just drove through it about a half hour ago. All right. This is a closer-up view. This shows clearly the existing sub-area plan, the Holder Industrial Park sub-area in blue, and the proposed 800-acre expansion is shown in green. And you'll see 491, US 41, as well as Highway 200 on the maps for reference, for location reference. Here's a regional aerial map. Again, you'll see it in context with the tree cover and the surrounding land uses, and as well as the adjacent highways. I'll talk more about the tree cover and things like that on a future slide. I'm just going to touch the highlights of the project history because I think Clark is going to go into more detail on that. But this project has about a 10-year history, so it's been 10 years in the making. In 2019, Duke Energy selected Citrus County. It's a very select process as to evaluate properties for industrial growth. And the site was selected for that. And the 557 current Holder Industrial Park land is now certified site for readiness. And what that means is if an industrial user was looking for land, perhaps they would contact the county and see where they have available land. This land already has the land use. It has or will soon have the utilities, and there's already been phase 1, phase 2 environmental studies, geotechnical, things like that. So this literally saves years of time if someone is interested in moving their business to Citrus County. This is a certified site for readiness. Okay, now in 2019, our team applied for and was approved for the current sub-area. And the sub-area, and I think Avis will talk about this in more detail, but it's actually a section of the comp plan. So it has very detailed things on what's allowed and what's not allowed. So that was approved in 2019 by the County Commission. And then in August 2024, the state awarded Citrus County a $2.8 million grant, and that was specifically for installing the wastewater to the property. Most of the piping, if not all of it's in, they have to install the lift stations, so that construction should be completed in 2026. Again, making the site shovel-ready. So there's a lot of entities involved in making these things happen. And today we're here with our application for the proposed expansion of the additional approximately 800 acres. All right, I think we need to go back to see what was approved. This is the 2019 sub-area sector plan. And the land uses that are included on that are commercial uses, Tier 1 light industrial, and Tier 2 industrial. The Tier 2 is in the dark gray, and our proposed expansion area is adjacent to the Tier 2 area. This was part of the 2019 application. This was a conceptual site plan, and this shows detail of how the site could be developed. It was not a PUD, so we're not tied to a specific detailed site plan. But this shows the commercial uses in red. It also shows in yellow workforce housing, which is an allowed use in the sub area. So there is a residential component. And it shows in the lighter gray the Tier 1 industrial uses and the Tier 2 uses. One thing this map also shows in the green, there's quite a bit of green areas. Those are preservation and open space areas. And those are primarily designed around some of the existing mining areas. All right, and we'll skip that. This map is a close-up. The area in blue is the existing Holder Industrial Park sub-area, 557.4 acres. And the area in green is our proposed expansion area. We're almost 800 acres to the site. And you'll see the green area touches County Road 491 as well as US 41. And we do touch Tram Road on the east side at one point. All right, this is the aerial map again, and I wanted to talk about the tree cover. You'll see the majority of the existing sub-area is mostly pasture. In the expansion area, we're probably about 35% pasture, and the rest of it pretty densely wooded site. Most of the woods, which we'll get into in a minute, are associated with the former mine areas that have naturally revegetated over decades of time. All right, this is the floodplain map. Now, if you didn't see this with the contours, you'd be like, well, why is there so much floodplain in the Central Ridge? This looks like Crystal River or something. But these floodplains are primarily associated with the mine pits, and we'll talk about the mine pits in just a minute. Where the contour lines, where it's almost solid black, that's the sides of the pits where the contours are close together. This is an enlargement of just one of the pits. This one is 35 feet deep. You'll see the contour lines in white. It's 35 feet deep on one side, and it's probably about 65 feet deep on the east bank of it. So this is pretty typical. And then the floodplain is at the bottom of those pit areas, as typical throughout the property. Now, one thing I wanted to point out, and you'll see it more on the next slide or so, there is about 8 very deep pits on the expansion area, the 800 acres. These are not prime development areas of the property. The pits range in depth, the 8 that I'm talking about, anywhere from 25 to 65 feet in depth. And they have, like I said, they've revegetated over several decades of time. Depending on which map you're looking at, there's at least 100 acres of the site associated with the actual pits themselves. One advantage of these, and I'll talk about this again in a minute, because they're not, prime development land out of the 800 acres, most likely these would remain as part of the open space, tree preservation areas with the site, as well as providing significant additional buffering in certain locations of the property. All right, this map hopefully clearly shows, I have the floodplain again in blue. The green areas surrounding it are basically, it's based on the contours, basically the top elevation of the pits. And these would be the tree preservation areas that I was just talking about. And the areas in gold represent the key development potential areas. And so of the 800 acres, we're depicting about 500 acres of the site would be prime development area land. Just want to point out, just for scale purposes, the southernmost leg of the gold area of our property, you'll see a huge green and blue area. There's actually a pond at the bottom of that mine pit. There's a lot of topographic disturbance. So we have, just in that bottom corner alone, about 33 acres of land that's really not suitable for development, so which would be assumed to remain in its current state. I won't say natural, but its current post-mining state. You could see the location of these green and blue areas. Several of them are up against the residential boundaries, so that will help to provide additional buffering and compatibility. So now let's look at the proposed sector plan. Now what this map shows, it shows the existing Holder Industrial Park on the left side of the slide. It's kind of cross-hatched and labeled, and then on the right portion of the map, the solid gray areas is the proposed Tier 2 industrial areas. And those Tier 2 areas are adjacent to I'll just call it the Phase 1 Tier 2 areas. So that's consistent across from east to west. Other than that, it shows the areas in green along the residential lots, in particular along the east boundary and the southwest boundary. We have some residential lots. Let me talk about those real quick. If you look closely on the maps, and it's probably easier to see on your screen, I've located where the existing homes are. There's about 39 existing lots or parcels adjacent to the Holder Industrial Park proposed expansion. So of the 39 lots, we have 20 mobile homes existing and 7 single-family site-built homes. Which means 31% of the parcels that are adjacent to us are currently vacant or undeveloped. And the average lot size would be about 6 acres. So for the most part, we have very large parcels adjacent to us. We do have some smaller mobile home lots on the southwest corner, but most of the sites are anywhere from 6 acres, 5 acres. There's 20 acre, 10 acre, and there's some 40-acre parcels. So we have some very large parcels. So just within those parcels themselves in the separation, that provides additional separation and buffering as well. All right. So I wanted to point out the buffer in green that I was mentioning. We are proposing a 75-foot wide natural buffer where we are adjacent to these residential parcels. And for comparison, let's talk about your current land development code. The most intense or the strongest buffer in the code is a type D. It's a 20-foot width buffer, 25-foot width preferred with a wall. We're proposing a buffer that's 3 times the width of your type D buffer of 75 feet. And part of the goal, besides separation, is tree preservation, to help with the compatibility issues. We're nowhere near a site plan, for this property, but at the time a site plan is developed for this, the land development code requires 125-foot separation from residential properties. If you're parking, let's restate, if you're parking, your internal driveways, your internal roadways for the industrial park are 125 feet or less from the residential boundaries, you would be automatically required to have a type D buffer with a wall. If they build those beyond that, our buffer would be suitable. All right. Where we are adjacent to the County Road 491 and US 41, we're proposing what's in the Land Development Code, a 25-foot type C buffer. All right. And other than that, because this is not a site plan that we're approving, the only other thing I wanted to highlight, the current approved 557-acre industrial site has 2 access points to the adjacent highways. Our 800-acre expansion area proposes 1 additional access point on 491, and it would be separated as such from Tram Road and from the Phase 1 drive or entrance road to meet county access management standards. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Avis. She's going to talk about land use and consistency with the comp plan.
Paul was driving it, yes? Okay. I wasn't quite sure from where I was sitting who was doing the driving. And there's my form. And for the record, I'm here speaking on the 2 applications, 00. I'm sorry, I'll get to that. Does that help?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm here speaking about both applications, 00012 and 00013. My name is Avis Marie Craig, P.O. Box 568, Lecanto, Florida. I'm a certified planner through the American Institute of Certified Planners since 1984, and I'm a life member of the American Planning Association. I take regular continuing education to maintain that certification. I've practiced here in Citrus County since 1983. and have both public sector and private sector experience as an economic planner. I came here to become the county's first planning director, and thereafter I worked for and in the real estate and development industry for over 3 decades, most notably bringing Terra Vista out of the ground in the 1990s. First, let me ask that my planning report previously submitted, dated 1/7/26, be entered into the record in support of both pending applications. This is an expansion of the existing approved industrial park from 2019. And as you'll remember, we went into a COVID standstill economically, which prior speakers haven't referenced. And that took several years to come back from. In the meantime, you heard about the county receiving the grant and the utilities, and construction is just wrapped up. And as Mr. Gibbs on the new expansion explained in slide 17, even though the new site is a total of 798, the reality is it's about 500 acres of usable, developable lands because of that historic mining use. That then brings us to slide 19 that's before you. That is the current future land use map showing the largest portion of the expansion currently to be LDR, followed by a small block of RUR adjacent to HIP 1, and agriculture along 491. And then there's the transportation communication utility corridor of the power line. And then south of that, there seems to be an anomaly, and that is that privately owned lands are not ever designated conservation. That's a category reserved strictly for publicly owned lands. Until acquisition of the HIP expansion lands, this wasn't known. But now that we know about it, it surely needs to be changed, and through this process would accomplish that. Slide 20, all right. The big white button, which one does it? Hold on. It popped on for a second, but it didn't, lovely. All right, technology is wonderful. All right, we'll bring the power back up. And we're back to slide 18. Let's try it one more time. Okay, existing zoning, which is slide 20, of the Land Development Code Atlas, commonly referred to in the county GIS as zoning, normally mirrors the flu map. And as I mentioned, the inconsistency on the flu, on the zoning map, this area is designated ag mobile home. Turning now to an important slide, and that is the purpose of the first application, which is the expansion of the PSA. You can see that over half of the new HIP expansion area is already in the PSA. And just parenthetically, during the 29 application, the area in orange was actually proposed because it was a much more logical boundary to what is now shown in this map as orange and the purpose of the 12 application. And note, it only applies to the applicant's property extending along 491 to Tram Road. It's also worth noting that another development to the east of HIP is already going through the permitting process as we speak, and will utilize the same grant-funded utility expansions designed to serve HIP, and that area is already in the PSA. So the reality is the orange area would more appropriately be described as an infill. And since the lines will run right in front of HIP expansion, it only makes sense that the HIP expansion be included in the PSA. Now, my report documents that the county once had 18,000 industrially zoned acres in Citrus County. When I got here in '83, most of the coast, west of 19 from the Barge Canal almost down to the Crystal River, was zoned industrial. And historically, our only industrial parks were located west of 19 in North Homosassa, running down to the area around Cardinal Lane. And so all of it was in environmentally sensitive areas. So this site offers a unique opportunity because of that. According to my report in Table 10.1 of the county's Comprehensive Plan Future Land Use Element, we actually lost 230 acres. And so Citrus County is really under-allocated for industrial lands. Let me compare for a second from my report. Citrus County has a population between 2025 and 30 of 162 to 190,000 people it's projected to grow to. And our acreage had gone down. And so Sumter County, a much historically smaller county, is now surpassing us in population, and their acreage is 4,881 acres, 10 times the amount of industrial lands that we have here in Citrus. And then little Levy County, with a population of roughly a quarter of our population. They have 300 acres of shovel-ready industrial lands, a quarter of the population of Citrus County.
Excuse me. We are all adults here. Please hold your comments. You will get an opportunity for public speaking. Thank you very much.
Regardless of how the reduction happened, the application steps in the right direction to meeting Citrus County's needs for industrial lands if we are to be a successful competitor in economic development. As a county, we espouse a need for technology and other jobs to attract industry. The original HIP and this expansion does just that. And we always talk about trying to hold our youth and provide jobs. Now, moving back to the expansion plan, this can only be accomplished when care is taken on buffers. HIP exceeds county standards, as Mr. Gibb just explained, and it, as a result, reduces off-site adjacent impacts, in my professional opinion, and therefore increases compatibility. A necessary finding of consistency has been made in my report and by others on this project team, especially with the comp plan's future land use element. And on that front, there were an objective 17.36 and the respective policy 17.365, objective 17.15, policy 17.159, especially because of the use of the sub-area plan that's proposed. That locks in the plan. It's not like someone that can come back and change it easily later. That's not the way it works with the comp plan. And the buffers, those are also an incorporated part of the comprehensive plan. Slides 25 and 26 address two other comp plan elements, and those are the economic development element and the private property rights element. As I cited in my report, the policies contribute further to consistency with the comp plan. Now, slide 27, and I can't see my numbers. I'm at 26, okay. Reference the issue of state law relative to compatibility, what it takes to satisfy the criteria. Chapter 163, and it's stated right here on this slide, references, and I referenced it in my report, 163-3164 subparen 9, and it's specifically shown in quote. It is my opinion the plan before you then satisfies the requirement, particularly given the enhanced buffers. In fact, in 2019 application with similar abutting land uses, it was found to be compatible, and that's due to what's cited next. Slide 28 explains the importance and value of sub-area sector plan text and policies that restrict the broader, more noxious uses that industrial normally allows. They're not allowed in this HIP application, including mining. And there are only a few of us in this room that probably remember the days when Yana Mine operated across from Beverly Hills. And yet today, that mine is now the famed quarry hole at Black Diamond Ranch Golf Course. Slides 29 and 30 point out some key elements. And am I in? Yeah. I'm going to have to put my glasses on. I'm sorry. Mine are for distance. Everybody else needs them for reading. I can't read I can't read what's on the page, but I can't read what's on the slides without them. They reference some key elements. Residential is removed from Tier 2, and so residential can now only occur, you remember what Paul showed you in the original plan's approval, according to the text and densities now adjusted to better satisfy the needs for affordable workforce housing. While much attention lately has been focused on the issue of data centers, in my opinion, that's somewhat unfortunate because that's just one of many industrial uses who can become tenants of HIP expansion if approved. We don't yet know for sure that a data center is even coming here. We have simply provided the opportunity for one if a commitment to do so occurs. While press and politics are flying at the moment on this issue, remember the legislative session will conclude next Friday, March the 13th, 1 week from tomorrow. So it's not as though it's open-ended and it's going to go on forever. So, and it's already passed one of the bodies, the Senate, and the House is working on committee versions as we speak. So we have plenty of time to address the issue well before this application will be going to County Commission. I would ask you commissioners on the PDC instead to focus on the text language revisions that have been provided to you of the negotiations and discussions with your staff to date. Finally, let's please turn to infrastructure as addressed in slides 31 and 32. This HIP expansion and the original HIP 1 project addresses potable water needs only and sanitary sewer, which will be served by Citrus County. It would not make sense to use potable water for cooling purposes for any prospective data center. Others will speak to this issue further. In fact, there are new technologies that don't even use water for cooling. So, the final issue is transportation. The new project expansion will add one additional access point, as Mr. Gibbs mentioned to you, for a total of 3. And the owner is prepared to dedicate right-of-way on both roads to provide a 200-foot width of right-of-way at time of expansion of either road. Because one's a state and one's a county, they may or may not be on the same schedule. Finally, the owner has offered shared stormwater drainage for both of the highway improvements as described, and that would occur within the private properties presently of HIP and 1 and 2. Since I've already spoken to slide 33, let me offer some conclusions here. It's my professional planning opinion that the application is consistent with your adopted comprehensive plan. It provides compatibility through the enlarged buffer and enhanced buffer provisions well beyond what's required by your land development code, as Mr. Gibbs explained. Further, this project does not adversely affect public facilities or utilities, and the project is clearly an economic development project deserving favorable action. I would therefore respectfully ask the PDC to recommend to the board favorably on this application from a planning perspective. Suitable conditions as text amendments can be outlined as needed. Now let me turn this over to Mr. Leota. You're probably more familiar with this. Use the white button. It's when I touched the others that I got in trouble.
Ms. Craig, I rarely have to raise the microphone after somebody speaks.
Well, I'm shrinking as I go.
Good morning. My name is Victor Leota. I am with Location Design Group. We are an economic development consulting firm that specializes in site selection, both in terms of greenfield site readiness for communities as well as corporate site selection. My background is in environmental consulting. I grew up in Louisiana, my home state, and spent the better part of my career working for industry, heavy industry, in petrochemical industry, downstream manufacturing, permitting, regulatory compliance, all the things that are required to plan, permit, develop, and operate heavy industry. And I created, through the economic development work that I was doing as I transitioned into that field, a program to help communities identify their highest and best greenfield sites for industrial and commercial land uses, specifically for economic development, meaning good job creation, sustainable tax revenues. The reason that I did that is because most communities I found that were well qualified for the target industries that they're trying to attract to their community were losing projects for the simple reason that they just didn't have good dirt. Meaning, the competition for land use, which is certainly understandable, for government services, education, healthcare, housing, affordable housing, et cetera. The idea is that most of these communities have had good diverse skill sets, competitive wages, great transportation assets, raw materials, feedstocks, et cetera, just didn't have developable land that was free from encumbrances for permitting and development. And so I decided to help communities get out in front of opportunity and identify those greenfield sites in advance. The idea is, can we identify undeveloped land that has the least amount of impediments for development and is highly attractive for your industry targets so that you don't get cut from a project that is the right project for your community? That's the whole idea of being ready to field opportunity with sites that are ready for permitting and development. This program is referred to as the Strategic Sites Inventory Program, or SSI. I created this back in 2008 and expanded it outside the state of Louisiana, which is the first state that we really moved into was Florida in 2012, 2013. We've looked at 64 of 67 counties in the state of Florida with this program. Over 1,200 acres have been identified, or 1,200 sites, rather, have been identified across the state that are potential sites for various uses. They range from 5 acres to well over 5,000 acres. And they support a variety of targets so that communities have a good diversity of real estate assets. With respect to the Holder Industrial Park, I will say this right off the bat. I think that you're sitting on a real estate asset that few have an opportunity to develop for economic development projects in the state of Florida. We see those, but they're lesser and fewer and far between. To have 1,300 acres with the assets that you have to support that with utilities and transportation for the right intensity of use is very important, I think, to this community. So we went through and we looked at a variety of factors that make this site compatible and or developable for a certain type of industry target. First and foremost, what we look at is what can you develop without putting a strain on the community assets? There are larger intensive uses that could be developed on this property, but what we're looking at are a variety of target industries. And is data center in the mix? It could be, but it is not the only. To echo what Ms. Craig said, you have an opportunity for a multi-tenant park. The nature of manufacturing in this country is changing very rapidly. And when you use the term industrial, I think it has a negative connotation when you start to look at the actual intensity of use. Medical device manufacturing, aerospace, defense, electronics manufacturing, cold storage potentially. There are a number of different users that would support tenants that create good-paying jobs that do not present a burden to the community in terms of noise, line of sight, light pollution, a significant amount of contiguous truck traffic, et cetera. And so the idea is this is not about what anything that could go there to create jobs. It has to make sense for the community. we worked through this to look at the economic impact of these sectors, which is the most important point that I want to talk through. If you look at, there's no named applicant, and I want to be very clear about that. I know that this has been mentioned earlier, but what we look at in terms of what the site would support and the transportation assets, the community assets for infrastructure, for utilities, compatibility with surrounding land use, the market area, all of those things. What we're looking at are potential uses of this property for a traditional economic development project. From that, we can make some inferences about the types of jobs that would be attracted. And if you look at this in aggregate, over the course of 10 years, you're looking at almost or north of $105 million in new property taxes that would be generated over 10 years. This is economic impact models, right? They're predictive, okay? So you have to take that with a grain of salt. But if you look at ultimately $4.8 million in sales tax, if you look at the average wage, especially for these jobs, it's upwards of $90,000 for some of the higher end uses on these properties. Again, there's no named applicant, but if you were to focus on attracting those users that are compatible within the community to create those jobs, you have an opportunity to do something transformative, not only in terms of generational opportunity for employment, but I think that Citrus County is in a great position to start to prepare itself for what the future of manufacturing is going to look like in this country. The day of smokestacks and overly burdensome manufacturing processes are going the way, really, frankly, of the dinosaur. You now have a lot of high-tech manufacturing that are happening inside of buildings that you'd never know what was going on. They don't require a tremendous amount of external storage, and they occupy a much smaller square footage, and yet they require a diversity of skill sets to bring into the community through your local workforce for training to support these jobs. But here's the other part. It's not just about what actually lands on a Holder Industrial Park. Because of the acreage and the fact that this could serve, again, in a transformational sense, you have civil and other engineering firms, you have mechanical contractors, you have environmental firms, you have surveyors, you have earthwork contractors, you have equipment rental, HVAC, electricians, all the way down, you've got barbershops and beauty salons. The support services that are going to be required to develop this park are going to have a huge economic impact for opportunity for local businesses beyond just what is locating as tenants and operating inside of this park. I think that when you look at, and I know there's been a lot of arguments about this idea of a data center, again, to stress, the acreage here is sufficient to not only support that, but what comes with the development of a data center, the other support services within the community, to me, that create a larger ecosystem for growth, to be able to have a broader, diverse set of economic revenues and jobs to sustain long-term growth in a controlled manner that you ultimately prescribe. And I think going through this process, if you want to talk about data centers, Ms. Craig mentioned this, but the data center world is changing, okay? The Amazons and the Metas and all the mid-level companies of the world have sort of gone full bore with this data center development, particularly with respect to processing, not just data storage. But they're listening. First of all, let's not be mistaken about this. I can't say the term money is no object, but the capital expenditure is tremendous. What that means is that if there's available technology, there is not going to be an argument that they're going to spend the dollars necessary to implement that technology. Are there cheaper technologies out there in order to do cooling, for example? Yes. But that's not what it's about. It's about satisfying the requirements of the permitting entities and the public that lives and works in and around those areas. So when it comes to things like light pollution, the idea of water consumption, you're now looking at data centers on this scale that ultimately potentially use less than a hotel or a couple of restaurants because they're using closed loop systems and other things. It's more expensive, but it works, and that's the direction they're going because they're listening to what the community has to say about their operations. Frankly, I think when you look at what could be developed on the current acreage that has been, the 550 acres that is already entitled and permitted for, or the land use and zoning for industrial uses. There are a lot of good job producing manufacturing projects that would work well in the dirt, but I don't think they work well for the transportation assets. And I think you have to take that into consideration. A data center probably is one of the lesser of those types of developments when it comes to impacts to traffic. Construction's another discussion. I mean, we can't ignore that, but there are management plans for that during construction phases. So as a site selection consultant, I've implemented the Strategic Sites Inventory Program in 15 states and over 400 counties. I've been to a lot of these meetings, and I've been doing it long enough to see some regret over legitimate public concern, which we all have to live somewhere, and we all have to tolerate and understand what change looks like. But I've also been in communities where I think there's been lost opportunities because they didn't respond to where the world is going with changing economics and the changing manufacturing sectors and what that looks like, and to really lean into that to understand what it could be for their community. To me, I see this, the opportunity cost of losing a way to diversify the economy and create a broader set of uses there. It's not just about a data center. The strategic plan for Citrus County mentions, I believe, 3 times the idea of economic development, growth, and prosperity. But with respect to that, regardless of what's going on at the state, I think you have an opportunity to kind of create a model for being able to govern the permitting and development operation of data centers in the state of Florida by having a durable, achievable set of requirements for what that looks like, and then require, if a data center comes to town, to comply with that and put the onus on them to ensure that the concerns with respect to water and noise and light and traffic are all addressed accordingly in compliance with your requirements. So there's a lot of positives. There's a lot of arguments for and against. I can understand that, but I do think that the economic benefit of this and the impact potentially would do much better for the greater good in the long term, even again, generationally for Citrus County, than to not develop this for its highest and best use as an industrial park. Thank you.
Good morning. For the record, my name's Clark Stillwell, and my address is 8599 East Fort Cooper Road in Inverness, Florida. And the reason I'm here is because I did the original HIP land use matter in 2018 and 2019, and I want to give you a little historical context of what occurred then, and then I want to speak to the submittal that Mr. Ansbacher's office made in the text. The Holder Industrial Site was identified in 2016 and 2017 by a blue ribbon committee of citizens in Citrus County consisting of Duke Energy, local government officials from all 3 governments, county planning staff, the county administrator, county commissioners. They listed some 20 sites for industrial development potential, and the Holder Industrial Site was the unanimous number 1. From there, Don Taylor, who was the head of the Economic Development Council at that time in Citrus County, Mr. Taylor's here today, proceeded to file a comprehensive land use plan amendment and accompanied it with a PUD for industrial use. The PUD was like a bubble plan. It went to the Board of County Commissioners. They voted to transmit it to the Department of Economic Opportunity because it's a large-scale amendment. Came back, and the 3-2 vote to transmit it turned into a 2-3 vote to turn it down. And the fears were essentially that the industrial uses were not defined well, and there was concern that there would be really, really heavy industrial uses in this area that were inappropriate. I received a phone call from Deltona, this young lady right here. Sharon Helmelman. She's the General Counsel of Deltona, and we're here to represent Deltona. In 2017, and with her help and Don Taylor's help, we proceeded to revise the application, and we created this sub-area policy within your comprehensive land use plan. The sub-area policy is a unique planning tool in Citrus County. To my knowledge, we have 3 of those: the Holder Industrial Park, a commercial parcel over on US 19 south of the airport, which has now been annexed into the city of Crystal River in the Hollingswood Port District. All 3 of those are designed to take unique pieces of property, take the generalized planning concepts that you have in your comp plan, and then merge them with the site-specific criteria to come up with a plan that works. So we submitted it on the 550 acres. The general concept was on US 41, as Paul Gibbs pointed out, you would have this commercial area at the entrance to the park on 41. Then behind that, you would have what we call the Tier 1 light industrial uses. And we listed within the Tier 1 what those light industrial uses were. Then to the east of that, in the north, we created the Tier 2 area, which is your traditional industrial uses above light industrial. From there, we then proceeded to deviate from your normal land development code. We had a very site-specific list of prohibited uses, okay? And then we had some other text about targeted industries, which were appropriate in this HIP 1, as we call it. And then we had some text about utilities and what we could or could not do at that time. Now, at the time in 2018, 2019, there were no utilities to the site, and industrial uses mandated the presence of central utilities. As a compromise, we've put a cap on what could be done in Holder Industrial Park up to a certain point, and then it had to have central utilities. So that was brought in front of the Board of County Commissioners. We specifically addressed in the Tier 1 area the buffers along those houses north of the power line. They were concerned. That hasn't changed, and those buffers are enhanced and remain the same in this application. There were 9 objectors in 2019. One of the concerns was that the site would be utilized for liquefied natural gas. That was addressed, and it was pointed out that was an appropriate use in the Tier 2 areas. So what transpired after that was simply, as Avis pointed out, COVID. Then significantly in 2022, 2023, the old railroad bed that ran through the middle of this piece of property, this 800 acres that we're talking about, was acquired from the railroad company to the state of Florida, to Citrus County, and then to my client, Deltona. So with the acquisition of the railroad piece and with the acquisition of central utilities, the site was, as identified by Mr. Leota, appropriate for potential expansion. I would point out that Victor testified in 2019 in this matter on the same very issues. So this last summer, I received a phone call, and they asked me to address this with Mr. Ansbacher, given my historical background. So that's what I'm going to speak to just quickly. At the same time that I was asked to do this, and I think you all know this, and I think the public knows this, as identified by our newspaper, Deltona Corporation had received an inquiry about use of the park for a data center, that there was some preliminary work done. Your county economic development director knows more about it than I, and that did not come to fruition, but that brought the issue to my client's attention, and they said, look, we've now got Central Water and Sewer, $2.8 million of taxpayer money. We now have the title issued, cleared, and we now have demand. So we've proceeded to file the application. Speaking to the planned service area component, as in 2019, excuse me, and now the test is threefold in your comprehensive land use plan. Does it have utilities? It does. Is it in the central area? It does. And does it have adequate infrastructure to go forward? And in all three cases in 2019, and now we meet each of those three criteria. So the text as originally submitted for adoption basically made some simple amendments and then tried to clarify land uses. First thing we did was we corrected the acreage. The second thing we did was we addressed the residential component. 6 years after I did it, I looked at it and I said, why did we put workforce housing in the Tier 2 area? I couldn't remember why I did that. So I figured out that there was no reason it shouldn't be there. So we relocated any housing out of Tier 2 for internal compatibility issues and moved it into Tier 1 in the commercial area. The original density was 8 units per acre for residential. We clarified that the residential would be multifamily, and we increased it to 12 units per acre. Now, the reason we did that was strictly for affordability. Affordability is a function of density, and the 12 units per acre represents a number of projects you have similarly approved in the last 5 years. The next step we did was on transportation. We modified the text to require mandatory dedication of right-of-way on 41 and 491. We put in a clause about joint drainage that didn't exist before, which is huge as far as cost savings to either FDOT or the county when those roads are expanded. There was one additional access point. We clarified the land uses to include the data center as an authorized use, and then we put in the prohibition about mining just as, again, a cleanup. So that was our submittal. The staff came back and gave us some comments. One of the first things we they addressed was the buffer. Our map shows 75 feet. The staff report asked for 100 feet. We had no issue with that. The staff report does speak to the S-curve and some commitment to straighten the S-curve out there on 491. We accepted that language. We just simply said we're prepared to pay or contribute our proportionate fair share. The utilities text was cleaned up. We completely eliminated anything that referenced on-site utilities and mandated central utilities from day one. The concurrency language is addressed within the staff report. And as you see in Mr. Ansbacher's response, the concurrency test hasn't changed since 2019. Hasn't changed in your statute, hasn't changed in your comp plan, and hasn't changed in the sub area. The concurrency test basically is at the time of building permit. So you have letters on file from the engineer, Mr. Burrell, about stormwater, and you have letters on file from the county utility department. Speaking then to the one issue that came up, and the county staff on data centers wanted some language relative to water consumption. The response in Mr. Ansbacher's letter was essentially the language within Commissioner Kennard's proposed pending regs was a good starting point, but after discussion with this gentleman and end users, the text we proposed that we will utilize closed loop liquid cooling system with dry coolers. This would be outside a normal industrial building. As a result, these coolers would be not consume potable water, but they would have a consumptive use permit through the Water Management District. The estimated use of this type of technology is about 100,000 to 125,000 gallons. It's a one-time deal because it's a closed-loop system. To put it in a context for you, if this was a residential development, 800 acres at 1 unit per acre, 245,000 gallons per day of consumptive potable water. So that technology was designed to address what we all know has been in the papers about these data centers and massive consumption of water. That's the commitment of the applicant. And it's important because it goes into the sub-area text with that standard. And with that standard, it cannot be deviated from without a comprehensive plan text amendment, a major amendment, and it can't have a variance from it. So that is how the sub-area policy can combine unique issues within the framework of a comprehensive plan, sub-area text, and map. Those are my comments. If you have questions later, I'm here to answer them. Eric, do you have a yellow sheet? I'll file a yellow sheet. Thank you.
And as I stated up front, with that, our initial presentation is done, and we stand ready to respond at rebuttal to make any additional changes that rebuttal may indicate.
Just to confirm, we're done with 12 and 13.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Staff questions of the applicant?
Yes, please. And I'm not sure which one you want to answer each question. That's up to you. Slide 17, if you can go back to that, please, Liz. I'm sorry. That was the open space map, and that was actually Mr. Gibbs, if you want him to respond. My question is that open space map is not part of your sub-area plan. Are you willing to revise the sub-area plan to show those areas? It looks like they're, we'll get back to it eventually. It looks like the open space areas you're pointing to would remove the area adjacent to Tram and also the area on the south that's impacting or could impact those neighborhoods. So it's pretty important. Yeah, thank you. So those are not less outs of the use. Is that what the intention is? Or was this just here's where our pits we have to overcome are?
Our intent is that it be open space. We're fine with modifying the sub-area to denote that.
Okay, so it literally looks like it talks about the south. The point to the south is basically not buildable for the most part around those neighborhoods, and the part right on Tram or Judson wouldn't be either. But that's something you're okay with. I hadn't looked at that like that before.
We recognize that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Liz, I'm sorry I'm making you jump around. Slide 34. And this was actually part of the economic development presentation portion. I'm not sure if it's his slide, though, but keep going. It's also in a later slide, too, but 34. One more. Two more. One more. There we go. Okay, that picture, yeah, too fast. That picture, is that a representation? And I mean, it's not a corner. It's not that those roads, I don't see any of the houses, but is that a representation of what you're thinking might go there? Or was that just a picture of an industrial site?
It's entirely conceptual, just to give you an idea of what the concept could look like. But no, this is not a sort of a pro forma or conceptual site design specifically for this use, for this park.
Okay, thank you. And I heard a couple times no named applicant. Do you have a use at all proposed here on the 500 acres or the new 800? Or I'm used to seeing applicants or uses specified, and I heard no name. Do you have an applicant at this time?
And Mr. Stillwell just confirmed what I was about to say, which is I don't think in either iteration we had an identified applicant. We've had people who have come to Deltona for various uses and various intensities. And as Mr. Stillwell said, the one additional change is predicated on what was presented a year ago. And the reductions and changes, for example, to the multifamily are not reflecting a multifamily applicant, but rather just trying to reflect a more compatible correlative use.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. A lot of public input, as you know. Some of their items, if you could touch on some of their items. One was noise. I noticed on one of your slides it says aerospace, defense, electronics manufacturing, fabricated metal product manufacturing, and of course everybody has heard the hum on the data centers. What noise abatements are you proposing or planning on doing for this?
At this point, we are waiting to hear what the public input is. We've discussed this internally, and we are willing to come back at rebuttal with proposals. Obviously, at this point, the only thing that is the baseline is the DBA of 75, 75, and 60, 55, but we have discussed various other things that we are willing to come back to, and that was specifically what I was thinking of when I said up front we didn't want to make proposals in dribs and drabs. And I was at the workshop, and I heard the presentations there.
You're wrong, yeah. Okay, so water, I appreciate you touched on that. And your letter, and Mr. Stillwell actually quoted from it, is talking about closed-loop liquid-cooled systems with dry coolers. We had talked about perhaps a well, and it doesn't sound like that's on the project anymore. Are you planning, well, you obviously have to have central water. Are you going to, what are your plans on that? Because we know specifically for data centers and also for some of this manufacturing, this could be heavy water users. So what are your plans for that?
And I think Mr. Stillwell touched on that the intent, in fact, the principal detailed comments that the board has received are consistent with our understanding of the industry, which is we may have a 100 more or less thousand GPD consumption up front, but the intent of having the closed loop system is to minimize the usage as the use continues.
Okay. Thank you, sir. No other questions?
Thank you. Does the board have any questions of the applicant?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Barmez.
I'd like to start out this. If you can put it on slide 38 to start with, is my first question, please. On this slide presentation and your testimony that we've heard already, you have no end users, correct?
That is correct.
Where do these numbers come from?
Hey, excuse me, please, we're all adults, come on.
And again, those are predicated upon estimated jobs for potential uses.
But you have no end users.
We do not.
So this is,
It would be conceptual.
all right, let me ask you.
In fact, let Victor say it because he's one of
That's you bring up a valid point. This is why we conduct economic impact model. It's a model, right? And so there are a lot of assumptions that are made, but they're not just pulled out of thin air. In other words, we have to look at what the type of intensity of use that the site would support to start with. And what goes into that, as I mentioned earlier, you have the acreage, the configuration of the site boundary, transportation, ingress, egress, volume of truck traffic, et cetera. You have utility access, you have access to raw materials. Workforce is a very key component to this, of course. We typically look at about a 45-minute drive time around the subject site. And then within that, you have the North American Industrial Classification System. It's a NAICS codes are what give you the sectors, industry sectors. You can be as very general and 2 digits for dairy, and you can go all the way down to milk and cows, right? But the idea is that we then can take the highest and best use and figure out what those sectors look like. From those sectors, we can understand the numbers of jobs typical for those types of sectors, and we understand the average wages for those sectors. And so there is a method to the madness. Those are plugged into economic development impact modeling programs that would then estimate based on direct, indirect, and induced jobs what the local economic impact would be. It takes into consideration property taxes, sales taxes, and again, it's conservative in the sense that you don't want to overinflate the numbers, but at the same time, it's based on actual data from jobs that typically you see at these types of uses. So that's where this information comes from. But it is, again, as I mentioned earlier, it's a model. It is not based on any particular named applicant.
All right, so you're saying that in 2 years construction, so what you're 2,450 construction workers for 2 years. After 2 years, it cuts in half according to this. I mean, I don't understand your conceptual concept on, if you don't have an end user in mind at all, I still don't understand where these numbers come from.
No, that's a fair question. And I think that when you look at, again, we're not talking about a brand new type of operation. Anything that we have looked at that we think is a highest and best use for that particular industry sector, we have decades of data and understanding of what it takes to construct those facilities. And so from that, you can infer exactly the type and numbers of workers in the construction, everything, again, from earthwork development to mechanical contractors to welders to you name it, and everything in between to come up with what those numbers look like. So that's a number in aggregate, and it should decrease over time because you're going to have a higher number of people coming, both in terms of in the community, but in certain respects, you're going to have certain trades and skills that you're going to need that would come outside temporarily to construct these facilities. That's why that number's higher.
All right, well, I'm still not satisfied, but I'm gonna move on. Can you tell me why the LDC does not mention data centers in our land development code? And why data centers was inserted on your behalf, on your application?
We cannot speak to why you don't have it within the land development code. The intent of the sub-area is to be specific to potential uses, and that's why we sought to clarify. As data processing was, as I recall, in the original text, we didn't want to stretch that. We thought it better to simply square up the issue.
I want to shift the gears a little bit and go back to your data center comments. Mr. Stillwell said 100,000 plus gallons of water. That's per day, correct?
That would be the estimated initial use.
Per day?
GPD.
Per day. Without end users, how can we get the proper buffers that's required if we don't know who's going to be there?
We are at this point with 100 feet well beyond the maximum normally called for. Well, Clark, 100. 100 because staff requested it and we consented to it.
Do you have any environmental concerns with this project and the way it's being changed?
The original phase 1 and 2 showed that there are no ambient environmental issues. As far as it being changed, we are minimizing water consumption, and to the extent that there are any environmental issues related to that minimization, that's part of the CUP process with SwiftMud.
So with your project, you're saying you're not going to increase the impervious surfaces, disrupt stormwater flow, impact any nearby habitats? That's not none of your concerns? It's not part of this project?
We have been and we would be limited to the impervious ratio of a heavy industrial use, which as I recall is 70%. As far as the water, in regards what staff asked for and what the specific parties who made comments about the reuse and recirculation of water. We responded as they requested as far as habitat is concerned. It's the same heavy industrial use that we've had before, and again, we are pretty comfortable with with what we have today.
What's your reason why we don't have an environmental assessment or mitigation plan in our packet?
Not required.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to reserve time for later.
Yes, sir. I hate to try and break this up this way. I usually try and do it at natural stops in this situation, but we're going to take a 10-minute break, and I just want to let everyone know real quick, it's going to be 10 minutes. So I will not hold the meeting if you're not in your chair. We're starting this meeting at 10:45. Thank you.